Hi, everyone. Welcome.
Morning.
Great to have you here. Let's see. Let me hit admit. We've got some note takers, and we'll get started in just a moment. We're so glad you're here. Leslie, it's so great to see you.
Nice
Welcome.
to see you too.
Hi,
Sorry, I'll get my note
Leslie.
taker off. It automatically joins, but I'll remove
Oh,
it.
you're totally fine. You're welcome
Okay.
to record it. We will also record. Actually, let's go ahead and start that, Katie, if you're able to. We'll record and we'll have this available for all of you afterwards, just in case you want to go back and listen further. And as you're joining today, we'd love to hear where you're joining us from. If you want to add that to the chat, as well as we're curious about what prompted you to join today. What is it you're hoping to take away? And we will continue to add a few folks before we get started, but I'll just say hello from me. I'm Shanaz Brochek from Coach Echo. We also have Katie here, Katie Drescher from Coach Echo, and we'll get started in just a couple minutes.
Yeah, so happy to
All
be here
right.
and wonderful to see all of you. I'm coming to you from Madison, Wisconsin. We've got
Wonderful.
Atlanta, sunny Florida, Ann Arbor, Denver. Welcome, everyone.
And Anajit, I'm excited to see you're joining from Canton, Michigan. I'm also from Canton, although I'm in New York City today.
Got it. I think I met you when I was in University of Michigan.
Yes, yes, I recognized your name. Great to have you here.
Same year. Thank you.
Absolutely. Wonderful.
Sacramento,
Okay.
Manitowoc, Wisconsin. It's great. Welcome, everybody.
Yeah, and again, we're curious about what you're hoping to take away today. If you want to add that to the chat as we get started. Wonderful. All right, Katie, I'll let you keep admitting folks in the background, but let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Again, I'm Shanaz Brochek from Coach Echo, and we are a community that is really focused on creating resources for coaches and being able to share as a community. So we're excited to have you join here today. Part of what we've been doing is these sessions that are really designed for coaches to learn from coaches. And so you're in good company here with other coaches in the field. And um, we're excited to speak with you about uh, coaching, career coaching from an insider's view with two of our guests today, Lisa Morgan and Scott Egbert, who join us from University of Michigan in career coaching roles that they serve in there. And I'll share with you a little bit of a background on my own introduction to these individuals before I let them share their own introductions. Lisa Morgan was my own career coach when I was a student at University of Michigan. And I remember at the time being very certain that I was going to go on and get a PhD. And I found her work really fascinating, but I had no intention of looking for a job after graduating. So I attended out of curiosity, um, but then later decided that I actually uh, was not going to go and get a PhD. And Lisa helped me figure out my own direction. So with her support, I actually ended up deciding to go into coaching myself. And so I am forever grateful for her putting me on that path. And I like to share one of the things she said to me while I was in that process that has always stuck with me, because I think there are things we sometimes say as coaches and we don't know the impact of what we're doing for another human in that process. But Lisa said to me, you've had a pattern of success, so there's every reason to believe that you will be again. And so those are words that have really stuck with me from her work with me. Thank you so much, Lisa. Really honored to have you here with us today. And I also count in my good fortune the introduction to Scott Egbert, who is also a coach at University of Michigan. And we had the good fortune of getting an opportunity to meet through Lisa. And one of the things I have enjoyed so much about Scott is the deep thinking that he does about our work and the great gift he has as a writer. So if any of you are not yet following him on LinkedIn, I really encourage you to connect with him there, and Lisa as well. But I think there's a lot of great deep thought that Scott puts into the nature of our work that I have found really compelling. So I think you'll enjoy it as well. So please join me in welcoming Lisa and Scott. And with that, I'd love to hear from both of you. Maybe Lisa, you can get us started, but I'd love to hear a little bit about your background and what brought you to career coaching.
Yeah, it's such a great question, Shanaz, and thank you for that warm and kind introduction. So, and one of the other things that you and I have talked about is that Steve Jobs quote, right? You can never connect the
Yeah.
dots going forward, only in retrospect, which is so true for both of us. And for me, as I look at my background, the other thing I was pondering as we talked about this was the fact that my story could probably be a case study of the Designing Your Life book, right? Just that
Yes.
whole,
Yeah.
everything along the way, right? Empathizing with yourself, realizing, wow, I'm really unhappy. I don't love this programming job that I got right out of college, and it really isn't me. And what else might be there for me out there? So yeah, so I went from getting a job because, they offered me one to, becoming a programmer, realizing I was sort of falling asleep over my keyboard. It wasn't the right thing for me. And doing a lot of soul searching and also looking outside within my company. And I was attracted to this leadership development group that I saw. And through really cold call networking, I was able to make a pivot into leadership development on, based on my project management skills, which I had gained through software engineering, right? So it's another one of those lessons that everything in life has value, even if we don't see it at the time. So I pivoted on project management. One of the first projects I led was to create a career management guide, which really piqued my interest in career management. Fast
Hmm.
forward, I was able to do some very adjunct work at the University of Michigan through a connection. Decided to go get a coaching certification, a career development facilitator certification, and my instructor at the time was working for Right Management, which some of you might be familiar with, right? An outplacement firm, Right Management, Lee Hecht Harrison, right? So my instructor was working for Right Management, knew that they were hiring, and she sort of connected me, and I was able to get a job there doing career consulting. And that's sort of what got me really officially on the path. And then years later, I was invited to come back to Michigan, to Ross, to start up an executive MBA career management program for that group of folks. And Shanaz, that's where you and I met. And the rest
Yes.
is history. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that, Lisa. And I loved the connection, right? There are all of these points in our path, how they connect, and we don't always know what they're going to be on the front end. But when you look back, you can see how it all made sense. And yeah, and also the very important part of just empathizing with yourself, the recognition that I'm not in the sweet spot, something needs to change, and going for it, right? Like figuring out, being willing to be with that discomfort, but staying true to yourself.
Right.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and just to add on to that for just a second, Shanaz, and I'm sharing this kind of for your benefit as well as everybody else, but
Yeah,
the sort of the value that purpose and mission has had in our lives. And for
yeah,
me, early on, really getting in touch with that, like Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, the path, right? Creating your mission for
yeah,
work and for life. Like those things really resonated for me, and sort of getting in touch with my own core values and mission was huge. And that really set me on that path. And I know it did for
yeah,
you as well.
yeah, definitely. Really foundational work that helps you want that for yourself, but then also for others, right? In that passion and connection to the purpose of the work, finding it for yourself, and then being able to want to share that with others. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. And Scott, I'd love to hear from you as well. Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, and thanks, Shanaz, for the warm introduction. And So yeah, I got my undergrad at the University of Michigan. I majored in aerospace engineering, did engineering for a few years, and went to Ross, got my MBA, and pivoted from engineering into operations finance. And got hired by Intel. That's what brought me out to Portland, Oregon, where I'm based now. I'm from Michigan originally. I was actually living in Canton before I moved. And so I did operations finance for a long time. And I was moved, as you were introducing Lisa Shanaz, I was moved by that because that's where my story of career coaching begins, because Lisa was my career coach too. And I had been doing the operations finance for a long time. And I felt like I was kind of getting towards the end of the road and I didn't know what was next and I needed help. And that's where Lisa entered in. And that was really my introduction to career coaching, was experiencing it. And, Lisa, I don't know if you remember, I mean, we spent a few hours together, right, in multiple sessions, but you said something to me at the time that was just deeply profound at a level that like kind of caused me to challenge my identity. And what you shared with me is that, but it seems like you're really a people person and you want to be doing something. And so, here I am, introvert, engineer that became, all quantitative finance stuff. And like, I didn't see myself as a people person. And yet I had spent years mentoring and career development. And so I didn't, she saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And that's the beauty of coaching, right? And so, some interesting events kind of happened right around that time. I was looking, after meeting with Lisa, I was looking to pivot into HR. And in the process of doing that, I discovered we had a leadership coaching office. And was very interested in that. I had taken an introductory coaching course myself, and started talking to other coaches and went down the path of getting certified, right, as I kind of saw how powerful that was. And that kind of led me down the journey. So I do leadership coaching and career coaching. I kept in touch with Lisa, had the opportunity to do a webinar partnering with Lisa a few years back. And when Lisa, reached out and needed some help because completely overwhelmed,
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to partner with her and help her out.
That's awesome, Scott. I love that connection that we share. And also really struck by you sharing just Lisa being able to see something in you that you weren't yet fully understanding about yourself, right? You're trying to think about what are the options, and having that other person who can kind of be an objective partner and thinking with you can really be helpful for all of us in thinking about who we are, and connects us even more deeply to the work. So thank you for sharing that. And what an incredible background, right? From aerospace engineering to operations finance, your MBA at Michigan, like how all of those threads connect into you finding who you are, and then even your own unique approach that then comes from that background to how you think about the work. And yeah, it's amazing to think about. And if we, were to ask everybody on this call, I'd be curious, maybe on the chat, just what are all the different backgrounds that you bring to your work as a career coach? If you're doing specifically career coaching kinds of work, it would be interesting to see just how vast that is for us on this call. And love to hear a little bit about your roles and what they entail. Both of you, I know right now, are coaching at University of Michigan and have been for some time. Love to hear about what that looks like for you. Lisa, you want to get us started?
So the scope of our role is that we offer lifetime career coaching and programming to all degree holders of the University of Michigan Ross School of Business. So basically, we're helping people from everything from who am I, what do I want to be when I grow up, regardless of their age and stage, right? To, okay, I know what I want, but how do I sort of brand myself? What does my resume need to look like? How do I properly use LinkedIn? What should my search strategy be? How do I network? And then what about preparing for interviews? And then, hey, I'm negotiating an offer. So that's sort of the scope of the work. But in addition to that, we talk to a lot of people who are in toxic work environments and just need guidance and help and are just really struggling. We talk to people, we're dealing with I think, and those of you who are also on this call, you can totally relate to this, right? People who are in the long-term unemployed and are really struggling. So there's a lot of emotional issues that we're dealing with as well. And people who want to get promoted and are, feeling like they're hitting a glass ceiling. So those are some of the issues. Scott, anything else come up for you as you think of that?
Boy, you did a great job of summarizing that, Lisa. I guess the only thing I would add is just kind of the range. It's all alumni, so it can be someone who just got their BBA yesterday, or it can be someone who's in their 60s, right, and trying to map out, kind of what's their next chapter in life, and everyone in between.
Yeah, I mean, it's so fascinating, right? Because you're dealing with a wide range of variability because they're all humans, right? And everybody has a different path and their own uniqueness. And Lisa, I know do you want to share just your own mission statement? I know it by heart actually, but I'd love to hear you say it.
Sure. So my mission is to inspire greatness by honoring uniqueness, which, was one of those things that I really studied and worked on and still feel really good about. And yeah, I totally feel like I'm able to do that through my work.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's such a powerful statement and connects to what Scott was sharing as well. And feeling that deeply, right? And in terms of bringing forward opportunity for others that is uniquely suited to them is really powerful. And I'm curious a little bit about, you talked a little bit about who is your audience. Scott, I'm curious, what are you finding people look to you for help with the most? Like, what are some of the areas that people really seem to struggle with the most or need some guidance with?
Yeah, well, Lisa alluded to this, and I think what people come and are looking for help with, it's a wide range, right? So sometimes it's the tactics, right, of kind of the resume, the LinkedIn profile, or help me prepare for interview. It's been a long time since I've interviewed. I'm kind of feeling rusty. So there's that tactical piece. Um, there's kind of the more foundational kind of strategy piece. Okay, I'm embarking on, especially if it's something new or it's a pivot, or I've been at a company for a long time and just went through a restructuring. What's next? And Lisa also touched on this. I think there's kind of the mindset piece as well. I think often in a job search, there tends to be a lot of energy and spark and enthusiasm early on, right? Especially if somebody is they're searching on their own terms. And over time, as weeks turn into months, or even longer, and the rejections and the ghosting pile up, right? It's hard to stay motivated, and so helping people with that too.
Yeah, and that's you can really feel that when you think about what that experience is like for people, and it has been a challenging job market for many people, and sometimes there are just points at which individuals are struggling regardless of the job market. But yeah, holding space for that and staying optimistic for someone when they're facing those challenges, I think can be uh, really hard for them, and sometimes hard for us as coaches as well. I'm curious a little bit about that. Like, what do you do? How do you stay optimistic for someone when you see them facing a lot of challenge?
Mm. Scott, do you want to take a stab at that one?
Yeah, I know. I was getting ready to point to you.
Yeah, because it is hard, right? It's hard.
It is hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and obviously it depends on the individual. But almost always there are some successes to point to.
Mhm.
And they're looking for the outcome of I need to land this next job, right? And everything that falls short of that outcome is disappointing. Um, but seeing the successes when people are doing the hard work of networking, um, and even the interviews, right? Of because we've seen this with people who have made it to the final round multiple times, and they just haven't crossed the finish line yet. Um,
Yeah.
and I think sometimes they underappreciate everything they did right, to even get to that point. And so kind of mirroring back that, hey, there's this other data, right, that points to success, and kind of helping balance that for them.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I'm seeing a lot of good chat things in the chat, right? People chiming in about these similar things and things that they're doing. But yeah, I think that in job search, right? Because you can't control everything, obviously, all you can
Mhm.
control is your actions, right? And your reactions. So the more that they're just keeping, continuing to move the ball down the field, so to speak, by taking action, it's acknowledging that. A lot of times people beat themselves up because they haven't, I didn't get everything done that I wanted to get done. And they come to meetings, kind of like with their tail between their legs, more or less. And I'm always like, well, yeah, but let's look at what you did achieve. That's really
Yeah.
great. So yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to do that for ourselves. And it's even sometimes hard when you do have that coach who's encouraging you, right? To really give yourself credit for the progress that you are making. But it's hard to imagine in some of those really tough situations just really feeling like you're going alone. And I think speaks to the value of career coaching at its core and how important it is to have that partner in your journey, particularly when it may not be just a straight and easy path, right? And take some time to get there. Yeah, thank you for your thoughts on that. I think it made me think about sort of fixed versus growth mindset, Carol Dweck's work, right? The idea that, oh, if I'm only successful if I land a job, instead of it feeling like, oh, I actually did a great job of networking. I'm meeting new people every day. I'm making progress in my career search. My LinkedIn profile is much more on point for who I am. I'm clearer about my value proposition. Like all of those things become big wins, right? That add up over time, or small wins that add up over time. But often people can just be dismissive about them for themselves. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. And I'm curious, you were describing sort of a mix of both the tactical and practical side of maybe updating your LinkedIn profile and a resume work and all of that. But Scott, I'm curious, like how much do you feel like is on more of the advising side and
Mm.
kind of the communications and the professional packaging versus more of the deep inner work and helping people maybe find their own sense of purpose and being able to tell their story more effectively, all of that work?
Yeah, it's really interesting. My journey as a coach, I think starting off in the career coaching, I tended to I think my thinking was a little more binary of like, oh,
Mhm.
this person wants to talk about their resume and LinkedIn profile. So this is going to be an advising session. Or this person wants to
Ah,
talk about motivation and mindset. So this is going to be a pure coaching session. And the reality is, I mean, as everything is so much more nuanced than that, right? Because the foot in the door can be reviewing their resume, and we can start looking at that. And that's very tactical and advising. But at any moment, we could get to a point in that conversation where, for example, someone is sharing like, I'm, I'm just not, I don't know how to tell my story, right? I was laid off. It's been a year ago. This gap is, I don't have a good explanation for this. All of a sudden now this is a coaching opportunity. Now it's going to be tactics and how that translates to the resume, but at any given moment, I just think as coaches, if we're present in the moment, that just don't know when those opportunities are going to present themselves.
Yeah, yeah, how intertwined they are truly, and the importance of presence to be with them wherever they are, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, really, really powerful. Lisa, anything else that you would add to that? Just, your sense of how much feels like coaching versus advising for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like in every, you have to like empathy is a part of every session. And
Mhm.
especially when I first meet with somebody, I'm spending a good 20 minutes, like on an average, just getting to know them and really understanding their story, getting a sense of where they're at emotionally and where they're feeling stuck. Right. And then, along the way, getting a sense of like, where are they in the process? And this probably gets into another question, but really trying to get a sense of where they are in the sort of the career transition process and where they really need help. So yeah, I feel like I'm doing that in every appointment. Yeah, and then certainly there are the tactics that come along the way. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And let's talk a little bit about process because you kind of brought us into that a little with your last comment. But I'm curious about from a process standpoint, if you're working with a new client, how do how do you manage the process for them? What does it look like? And is there anything that feels, as much as we're talking about a pretty highly variable population, right? Like each person can be in their own journey and the uniqueness that you really work to support in your own mission statement, right? How do you think about process?
Yeah. So, and I think one thing that Scott and I did mention is that we have very high volume. So
Yeah.
we did 900 appointments last year. So it's a lot of coaching. And so what I'm doing, like I said, I'm really empathizing at the beginning of any appointment. I of course try to look people up ahead of time, get a sense of their resume and LinkedIn, so I get a sense of who they are professionally before I'm even talking to them. But but in that whole process, I'm trying to figure out where they are in the career transition cycle, right? Are they at the who am I, what do I want to be when I grow up phase? Or do they already know what they want? And then the next part of that process is sort of thinking about branding, right? Thinking about resume, thinking
Mhm.
about LinkedIn, um, and then talking to them, getting into that whole discussion of search strategy. What does search strategy need to look like? What is networking going to look like for this person? And really getting a sense all along the way of what have they done so far and where do they need help, where they feel challenged. So that's how I think of it. And for those of you I know out there in the audience, some of you folks have worked for like Lee Hecht Harrison, right, or Right Management.
Mhm.
That's sort of what my early grounding was. So I think I sort of think about that whole spectrum whenever I'm working with a client.
Yeah, well, and just when you share the numbers, right? 900 coaching sessions between the two of you in the last year, that paints a picture of a need for process and a need for, in order to just sort of um, stay focused and understand where you are with each person. I'm just thinking about uh, how important process can be for that. And at the same time, um, the fluidity and your ability to kind of empathize with where they are and where in maybe you're looking holistically at process and each time it's slightly different and you're responding and supporting for where they are. But then understanding, okay, there's a bigger process that I'm holding while I'm trying to be, very present and empathetic to where they are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Scott, anything you would add, or how does
Well,
that compare to how you think about it?
yeah, I think what Lisa shared about kind of that first 20 minutes is so important. And so even when somebody comes in and it seems like they know exactly what they like, I just want you to review my resume.
Yeah.
And in that first session, like, happy to do that, but can we just take a few minutes, right? Tell me a little bit about your journey, right? Where have you been? Where is it that you're trying to go? What are you finding challenging? And that first, 10, 15, 20 minutes is so informative. And for me as a coach, but I also think there's a universal need for people to be heard and understood. And we have the opportunity to provide that. And I guess that gets back into your kind of coaching versus advising piece, right? Um, and so, yeah, I think it's starting off in the initial session, I think that's a critical piece.
Yeah, definitely. And I was thinking as I was hearing both of you, I was also thinking about times when in a coaching call, they sometimes it's like you spend that upfront time and you sort of have an understanding of where they are and what they're trying to accomplish or where they are in the journey. And then sometimes that last couple of minutes of the call, it can be like, oh, there's this, now the real issue is starting to come forward, or they're starting to see it in a different way. And so both front end and back end, and wherever you are in the process, like all of it being so incredibly important to support our clients. Um, Scott, I'm curious for you. What do you find most fulfilling about the work?
Just seeing people that are, they're stuck or frustrated or just overwhelmed by the challenge. 'Cause you're right, it is a really difficult market with a lot of headwinds. And seeing people overcome that. And I think what's most fulfilling is just the pride in them because they were able to do things they didn't think they were capable of, right? And
Mhm.
so I think that's what's most fulfilling for me.
Yeah, there's a piece of that about resilience, right? That seeing their resilience, I wonder how that changes your own sense of resilience, or if you've, how has that impacted your own way of being?
It's incredibly inspiring. So yeah, it's I think I can't not feel that, right? Of like,
Yeah,
wow, like look what they just went through, right? And yeah, that inspires me to want to be more resilient.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I always find in coaching, there's those, there's the work that you're doing with the client, and then also your own discovery, and your own journey that can be a parallel learning path at the same time, and how generative that can be. Lisa, anything that you would add? Just what do you find most fulfilling? What's similar or different for you?
Sure. I mean, obviously, when someone responds, emails me, whatever, and just says, "You've helped me so much." I mean, that's just super rewarding, right? That's why we do what we do. And secondly, when they get jobs, I'm super happy.
Yeah,
It really makes my day. So that's big.
yeah,
And then, one of the things that Scott and I have talked about, and this relates to the AI issue, which I know we want to get to, is that we learn as much from our clients as they learn from us. Like
yeah,
and it's so rewarding to meet people from different backgrounds and get to know. It's just fascinating, right? Shanaz, you and I talk about this. People are fascinating. I suspect that
yeah.
everybody who's on this call feels the same way, right? That's one of the reasons we do what we do, because we like people, right?
Yeah, definitely. And kind of that virtuous, continuous learning cycle that we're in with them, for them, and our own continuous improvement by the work that we do is really inspiring, I think, to be a part of, for sure. What about on the flip side? What do you find most challenging? Lisa, for you, what would you say?
Yeah, right. I mean, obviously, people losing their jobs in droves through
Mhm.
downsizing is really, it's just really tugs at your heartstrings. People who come back after, you've helped them once and they come back again, they've lost another job. Like this has been a cycle that we've been in now for several years, and it is tough. And you see what it does to their self-confidence, right? Their
Mhm.
stress level, their families. So that's tough. People in the long-term unemployed category, that really also tugs at my heartstrings. And then also, and I know we've got at least one person on the call, right? I saw a comment who works with neurodivergent folks. So we do
Mhm.
deal with people who have different, mental illnesses, cognitive impairment. I've dealt with people who have stuttering issues, which is really tough in job search, right? Personal challenges, single parents, all those kinds of things. And then people who are dealing with toxic bosses or toxic workplaces. Like those are the things that
Yeah.
get to me, Shanaz.
Yeah, I mean, that you just named a whole host of things, right, that can
Yeah.
be really challenging and test our own resilience and our own creativity and how to best support and the desire, I think, to both do as much as you can to help someone in that journey, and also understand that there's everyone is in their own path, and sometimes there's you're in there for a piece of their journey, but you don't always know how it will come back to them later or where you'll get with them in terms of how you can deliver value. And I know for you that outcome side of it is really important, right? Like you need to feel this has always been true of you as long as I can think of that. You want to feel like, yeah, there's some kind of ROI that's happening here. And if that doesn't feel tangible, how hard that can feel for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got it, Shanaz. You know me.
I do. I definitely feel that. And I've heard it from you. And I know you've got like Maximizer is also one of your, I think if I remember correctly, one of your um, Gallup Clifton Strengths, top 5, if I remember correctly. And I feel some of that come through in your work and being a profound part of it for sure. And I'm curious, when you find someone who just really feels stuck, like they don't know where to go, you're asking questions and there's just this general sense of not knowing what they want and not knowing where they're headed. How do you help them? Scott, you want to
Yeah.
take that
Yeah, I
one?
mean that people like that, that was me. That was me when I went to see Lisa, right? So
Yeah.
um and so I tried to do what Lisa did and understand, where they're at. I think in some cases, stuck looks different for different people. In some cases, um, like I'm just stuck in this. I don't have any options, right? And so I need some help and even seeing that there are options out there. I think other people feel stuck with too many options, right? There's all these different paths I could go down. I've got all these ideas that my friends and family have given me, and I don't know. I'm paralyzed because there's just too many things. I don't know where to start. And so understanding where people are at and meeting them there, um, and helping, again, back to Lisa's example of, really understanding, okay, what are your strengths? What are the things that you're passionate about, right? And bring you joy, and helping kind of reflect that back to them, because oftentimes they don't see it clearly.
Yeah, definitely. And I appreciated what you shared around your own journey and understanding. We've all had times of feeling stuck or unsure, and connecting to that in yourself, with hope, right? That doesn't stuck isn't it's not a permanent destination. It doesn't have to be. And so, how can you be curious about the path that takes someone forward? Um, yeah, and I was thinking about when we were preparing for this call, I was thinking about what's happening now with AI. And, we have people sometimes who are thinking about different career paths, and you've got some insider information and a perspective on what might be, more viable paths, or, what might be promising for someone, or even perhaps thinking about someone who's considering a particular path and your instinct is, yeah, that's not the right direction for you. So I'm curious about what do you do? Or does that sound familiar? Have you been in that place? And what do you do if you run into someone who's, kind of their own career instincts are heading in a direction that you would not advise?
Yeah, and this is it's funny when I think of that, it's not so much necessarily a function there's a couple examples, Shanaz, that come to me where I felt maybe someone was making a mistake in their career instincts, and in both the cases where they had been laid off and they were looking to rush back into something, even though they
Mhm.
didn't need to financially. In both cases, they were financially secure. They had plenty of runway, but they were unsettled with the identity of being unemployed, and they were rushing back into something that really felt to me like this isn't a good fit. You're
Mhm.
settling, um, and so. Um, for me, I just tried to, here's what I'm observing. Here's what you said was important to you. I'm echoing back your values and your priorities to you. And here's what I'm seeing in this. In light of this, do you feel, comfortable that this is a good fit? Um, what I'll also say is my instincts aren't always right. I had
Mhm.
I had one case where someone was in the job for 6 weeks and she quit and came back, and I shouldn't have taken that. Um, but I had another case where someone, is 3 years in and um, and is loving it, and my instincts were wrong. So I think there needs to be humility there as well. Just because I think it's a mistake, am I projecting my values, onto the situation and my priorities, or am I honoring theirs, right? And that can be it's something I always want to be aware of because it can be a fine line sometimes.
Yeah, and the humility behind that, and staying both connected to your intuition and being, willing to call it out and sort of challenge supportively, and at the same time, um, detaching from the need to be right about it, right? Like being completely comfortable with, I might not have this right, but sharing it to be of service, and letting it be part of your learning. There's something really beautiful about that. I want to ask a little bit around, what's happening with AI in the job search and what you're running into. But curious, so much has changed in the job market today. We hear about people being laid off in a number of different fields, and new jobs that are emerging. And I'm curious about, sort of, given the state of the job market, and even like, how would you describe the state of the job market? Curious about that, and what you're seeing with the emergence of AI. And Lisa, you
Yeah.
want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. And so the state of the job market, I mean, I think this is no surprise. We're not in 2008, but it really feels similar in many ways.
Mhm.
Different dynamics, but it feels to me, with my audience, it feels about that tough. It's tough for internationals. It's tough for new grads because of AI, because companies are not
Mhm.
hiring as many new grads due to AI. And yeah, and it's tough because companies have made it a part of their regular business operations to just lay off. Lay off quarterly,
Mhm.
lay off yearly, whatever their pattern is. So that is kind of a sad state of affairs right now. And we on this side see the impact that it has on people's lives. So that's what people are dealing with. So right now, companies have the luxury of hiring an exact match for a position. And
Mhm.
and that, versus, let's say back in 2021 when we had all this scaling going on, this company scaling up where all they want to do is just hire smart, capable, hardworking people. So that's a great job market, right? But now we're in that job market where you have to be pretty much an exact match to get a job. And so things like, the very basics. I mean, one of my mantras is job title is king, right? It's one of the most, king or queen on your resume. So the more that you can sort of
Mhm.
align your headline, align your job titles as much as you can while still being honest with your target, and then tailor resumes accordingly is really great. One of my other mantras is just the importance of the 6-second scan, that for the human reader, it's really important that the things that are in bold, tell the story and pop off the page and grab the reader's attention. So with that sort of as the reality, the other thing that's going on is the heavy use of ATS. And with AI,
Mhm.
with people being able to quickly potentially modify resumes using AI prompts, then when those job postings are out there, the numbers pop up very quickly. So, if you're not getting on top of that job posting and applying right away, or if your clients aren't, applying within the first like couple days, they're often too late for the game. So sometimes when people think,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, what am I doing wrong? I'm tailoring my resume, I'm using AI. Why aren't I getting any traction? It's because, well, you're probably late to the game. By the time you see that job posting, it's often too late. So once again, the more things change, the more they stay the same. And the more that really companies and individuals are relying on networking to sort of
Mhm.
to find out who the really great candidates are. So that was a long answer for that question.
Yeah, no,
I
it's
mean,
a great
I
answer.
think
Great
in
answer.
general, AI is helpful at every phase. I mean, it's really great for
Mhm.
research. I think one of the registrants brought that up, right? It's a great research tool. It used to take
Mhm.
quite a long time to generate a list of target companies. Now it's lightning fast, right? You just ask AI, and of course you want to use other tools too, but AI will give you a really nice list. It's great for identifying keywords and skills that you have to put on your resume. But you can't make stuff up. So you have to really, obviously, you have to really watch what AI creates and read it. And it's great for helping people with mock interviews. It's really good for
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of tools, right? A lot of tools that
Yeah.
come from AI that can be really helpful, it sounds like, in the job search process. But also, one of the things you said early on was just sort of the crisis of confidence that people can feel in this environment, that it can feel like there's something wrong with them. Like, why am I not, I've sent in, 500 resumes, why, or applied to 500 jobs, why haven't I found something yet? Or
Right.
kind of the stress that goes with that, and the emotional toll that it places on individuals. And at the same time, um, yeah, we're kind of in this place right now, I think, where with AI, there will be new jobs that get created, and there will be new opportunities that keep emerging. But we're sort of in this time where some things are slowing down before that next increase, and those new opportunities start to surface. And even just like, how do you stay informed as a job applicant and someone thinking about their career paths, and I mean, the importance of learning and staying current in all of this feels really more pressured maybe than ever. Yeah, Scott, anything else that you're seeing with AI that maybe Lisa hasn't touched on yet?
No, I think that was a really comprehensive answer. I don't know that I have anything to add to what Lisa. I would just kind of double down on the point Lisa made there, which I think is really important about um, because AI is being abused in some cases of basically people optimizing a resume with credentials that don't really exist or experience that
Mhm.
doesn't exist. Um, it networking matters even more, and so like Lisa said, there's
Yeah.
some things that are not changing, and I think this importance of networking is as high as it's ever been.
Yeah, and the thing about networking is it's not something that is as easily learned through AI, right? It's one of those things that we actually have to get practice and feedback on and experience to get better at it. So it's interesting to see where do we need AI support that can help us be more effective, and then what are the other skills that we need to develop separately, uh, and how do we get there, right? I think career coaching can be a really important part of that support. Well, I'd love to just open it up to our audience for the questions that you have, and you can either raise your hand or take yourself off of mute, either way. But we'd love to hear or put it in the chat, right? Um,
I
and
see
I'm
Leslie's got her hand
thrilled.
raised. I'm looking
Okay,
at
great.
Leslie.
Great, Leslie.
Thanks, Lisa. Great to see you, and great. Thank you, Scott and Lisa, for everything you've shared today. I'm wondering, kind of on that AI topic. So, knowing that the landscape of the job market is changing, you already spoke about that. And so many jobs we now hear about, like some are AI proof and others are just being significantly impacted. How are you coaching people in that new landscape of how they might need to reinvent themselves given certain, experiences, certain majors from the past that maybe aren't those AI proof jobs? I'm just curious of what your experience is that and how you're coaching people through that.
Yeah, such a good question. Yeah, Leslie, because often people don't know until they get impacted by it, right? They can't necessarily see the writing on the wall, although some people do see the writing on the wall. And I mean, at a minimum, people need to be using AI and using it in a more and more sophisticated way so that they can talk about it in interviews. So I think that that's probably, when we talked about how, what are some of the hottest degrees out there today, I'm not sure if there are really hot degrees as there are people who are able to use AI, can talk about the things that they've done with it so that they can adapt and they can use AI as a partner versus being a victim of it. So those are some of the things that come to mind for me. I mean, other than that, you start thinking about, well, like, like I've coached new grads to go into sales or like wealth management because, anything that's person to person feels safer right now, at least right now. Hands-on careers, healthcare careers, skilled trades. I mean, those are some of it's not so great for our audience. Our BBAs and MBAs, those aren't really great solutions for them necessarily, but more broadly speaking, those feel like more like safe havens. Yeah, Scott, anything you would add to that? I feel like I rambled a bit there on that.
No, yeah, it's not clear to me that there is a function that is truly AI proof.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe other than the trades, right, as you're mentioning at this point, Lisa. But there are, like, when you talk about sales, and I think we've seen maybe kind of operations, supply chain, as maybe not as heavily impacted by AI as, say, consulting or strategy roles. And it's just these things that there's always going to be a need for it. So I think relatively those are, less impacted, but maybe not fully AI proof.
Yeah. No, thank you both.
Yeah, great question, Leslie. And I think too, um, when we think about what do you share around how you're using AI, it's beyond yes, I use ChatGPT every day, right? Like that's pretty basic. And so, what are the more sophisticated kinds of responses that someone might be looking for as an employer? And then how do people actually prepare themselves? I'm even wondering, like in higher ed right now, what that looks like. How much are people learning, in school versus what they'll need to learn out in the world, and to a degree, taking charge of their own learning in that space. Yes, Betsy.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for hosting this.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining.
Sure. I am a career coach and I work exclusively with college students, recent grads, and early career. Some high school too, but not much. And the subject of AI has been obviously, well, it's the news cycle has just been jumping all over all the commencements where people are booing the speakers because they're talking about AI. My son actually just graduated last weekend from University of Central Florida, and one of the speakers there got booed because she called AI the new industrial revolution. And it's been tough. I mean, obviously, my clients are all emerging or launching into the world, but the advice I have given them, and I guess there's a question coming, I guess, but is every single job you're looking at, thinking about, preparing for, applying to, you have to apply the AI lens over it. In what ways will this job be impacted? And in what ways can I start positioning myself as somebody who knows this is how to use AI for efficiency, productivity, right, to move the needle? Because, you know, there's all the hype in the headlines about AI is taking all the jobs, but it's really not. It's changing the jobs, at least the entry level jobs. Yes, some are going away, but new ones are being created. So I guess my question is for those who are in higher ed or around young adults, what's going on inside of higher ed? Because from my view on the outside, I'm not within the walls of higher ed, I'm independent. But from what I'm seeing is students are coming out, frankly, not happy about AI, not prepared to enter, aren't career ready with regard to AI skills. And I guess I'm just wondering, is there change coming? And I know it takes a very long time to adapt change within the higher ed landscape, but what are you guys seeing as far as preparing these young adults for what's next? Sorry, that was a long statement for a question.
Yeah, I'd be happy to take that one. So Betsy, I mean, great point. I know at our school, our dean has really jumped on this and, has created like an AI institute. And, so there's a huge effort to try to prepare our students. And I would say that our students are probably more prepared than average. But, I think you're bringing up a great point that overall, higher ed tends to move very slowly. And so I'm not sure how common that is. And I think the other thing with AI is it's emerged so quickly. When you think about the first version of ChatGPT was released in what, like fall or winter of 2022. I mean, here we are just into 2026, and it's completely, it's the predominant conversation on everybody's lips. So yeah, a lot probably needs to change in that regard. But I think the other thing that's happening is that companies have in anticipation of believing that AI is going to replace entry level jobs, and also because they're investing in AI themselves, they've taken money away from other functions, and that is what's really, I think, impacting entry level folks right now. So I think, and I forgot, Shanaz, if it was you that brought this up or Scott, but just that whole idea that the pendulum will start to swing back in the other direction. Companies will realize, oh yeah, we do still need people. I think we're going to see some of that happening.
Yeah, I agree. I
Yeah.
think there's going to be sort of a rollback at some point because adoption, and I host a podcast too, and I've been talking to people in industry, and they're saying, you know, adoption is not as fast as we want it to be, mostly because we can't adopt as quickly as it's changing, but also, especially in bigger corporations, you don't just roll it out to everybody, right? There's got to be guidelines and all that. So, but thank you for that. Good to know that it's happening in some universities because I have clients from colleges and universities all over the country, and I'm continually baffled by the lack of understanding of AI, how to use it, or even to write a simple prompt. So good to know that it is changing.
Yeah, thank you, Betsy. And completely agree with you that our, in our job market today, everyone does need to be thinking about how will AI impact my role or the type of work that I do, and to be really curious about that, and to take time to learn and to explore what additional learning might be helpful for them, so that when that job interview opportunity comes, that they're better able to intelligently engage around that conversation. Yeah. I also, one last question we'll take here. I see Joy had put a question in. Actually, I think maybe it got changed, or was it up above? Okay, I see it up here, up above. Does anyone here use AI to create career plans? So I'm curious about that. And Lisa and Scott, maybe you can chime in, and then anyone else who maybe is thinking about that, would be great to hear from you as well.
Yeah, so I have not personally, but I've been amazed at the things that my clients do. People will show me things. And I mean, Scott, we talk about this, right? That especially with AI, we learn a ton from the people we're working with because they're out there in the trenches, right? Playing around with prompts, asking ChatGPT questions and creating really neat tools to help them with this process.
Yeah, it looks like there's a few folks that are using prompts like that. Julia says asking Claude to create a 30, 60, 90-day job search plan as an example. Great idea to do that and to find more and more application. Scott, anything else that you would add? Anything else you see?
No, I would echo. I mean, I thought of myself as kind of an early user of ChatGPT, and I remember introducing that to some clients a couple of years ago. And now I feel like I'm totally on the other side of that equation, where I'm learning far more from our clients than I'm able to teach them.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's a great opportunity for us to share those insights with each other. And thank you both for joining us, Lisa and Scott, and to all of you that are here on the call today. We really appreciate you coming to learn with us, and that's really at the heart of what we're trying to do at Coach Echo. So please follow us, stay in touch, let us know topics that you're interested in hearing more about, and again, thank you all for being here.
This has been great, Shanaz, and I've really enjoyed the engagement in the chat and reading the things people are saying. So a lot of super sharp people doing great work out there. So thank you all for being here.
Yeah,
Thanks,
wonderful
everyone.
to see.
This was great. Thank you very much. Great job, Lisa.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Leslie. All right.